going on, guys? I'm Chris Mata. This is Fresh Look Media. This is my first full review, and no better video to start off with than a Captain America Civil War review. Now, going into this movie, I had a lot of high expectations. I mean, Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors of this movie, they did a great job with Winter Soldier, and I was really going into this movie with a lot of high hopes. And they definitely delivered. This movie was awesome. Special effects in this movie was amazing. The fight scenes were amazing. You had comedy, you had sad scenes, you had awesome drama especially between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And this was all just, you could tell that they had a reason to be fighting. I couldn't help but go through this whole 2.5-hour movie comparing it to Batman vs. Superman, and all I can say is Marvel was lucky that they went second DC was lucky that Marvel went second, because if DC had to follow up this movie, it would have been a lot worse for them. But so this is just the spoiler-free version. I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail. So right now I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert. From now on I'm gonna be talking a little bit of spoilers, some of the plot line. I won't go too far into the details, but just talk about some of my things that I liked and just a couple of things I was a little unsure about. But so to start off, the actual conflict was something that I was expecting already, but they improved upon it. And the whole thing with, spoiler alert, Tony Stark's parents being killed by the Winter Soldier, that was an awesome twist that I did not see coming, and that changed the whole complexity of this movie. And that was at the last half hour of the movie. And so they had been fighting. You started off in the movie with already a disagreement where Tony Stark wanted them to be in check after the events of Age of Ultron, and you saw him meet that woman who her son was killed during that events that happened in Age of Ultron. And so that personally hit him. And you could see throughout the movie they did a great job setting up the conflicts between all the characters. And this was something that Batman vs. Superman failed to do. Batman vs. Superman, they just kind of had a few things going on, and then they just threw them into a fight. And then all of a sudden, don't even get me started with it, but the name of their mother was what ended the conflict. I mean, that was a little bit. But anyways, going back to this movie, they had a point to be fighting, and they also had a point to stop. And it was a great it was a great character arc for every single character. They didn't leave anybody out. I wish I could have saw a little bit more of Ant-Man, but I was perfectly fine with how much, I can't go too far into that, but the airport scene is by far the best scene I've ever seen in any movie, superhero movie I should say. That was an awesome, just the camera work done where you're going from all the different conflicts between each of the characters was awesome. Some of the pictures showing up here is showing a little bit of that airport scene, but that was an awesome scene, and they did such a great job because they could have just threw a bunch of characters in there and just had them fighting and then that's it. But each one of those characters had a reason to be fighting and had a reason to be fighting who they were fighting, and so that made it an awesome conflict. Now, one of the things I was a little bit drawn back by was the Baron Zemo villain in this movie. I wish he would have been in a little bit more, and he didn't really have such a huge role other than the last 30 minutes. Before that 30 minutes, he was in a couple scenes just kind of setting up the attack at the United Nations meeting, and it was just a few different setups, but at the end was when he really came in with the video of Tony Stark's parents being killed by Winter Soldier. But he didn't really do too much to the plot point, but because they were basically they were fighting no matter what. It's just he kind of fueled it a little bit more, but I think they could have passed without it. But I wonder if he'd be in future movies, just because of the way they ended it. Now, one of the things I absolutely loved, and a lot of people coming out of this movie really loved, was Spider-Man. this was finally a Spider-Man that's believable, because before you had these actors who didn't even look like they were in high school. The first three he went off to college, and then the Andrew Garfield movies he was in high school, but he doesn't look like a high school student. This kid is believable. He was funny. His lines were cleverly written. Him and the Tony Stark, their first meeting was awesome. Especially Tony Stark hitting on his aunt, which was hilarious. But that's a Spider-Man I can't wait to see in his own movie. It was a very exciting to see him finally. And I went and saw it at 10 o'clock last night on Thursday in IMAX. And so there's people there dressed up. I was wearing my Captain America shirt. And that reaction when Tony Stark says, "I know a guy," and then all of a sudden it cuts and it says Queens, everybody went nuts in the crowd because everybody knew this was something that they've been waiting for. They wanted Spider-Man to be in the MCU, and it's finally here. And now he's getting his own movie, which they already said Tony Stark will be in it. That's going to be exciting, and they did a great job setting it up, but he wasn't in it too much, but I'm happy. I didn't want them to force the hand on Spider-Man, but it was just a tease, just enough to get people excited for the solo movie and introduce him into this Marvel Cinematic Universe. Other than that, the movie was awesome. The drama, I mean, there's a few, really devastating scenes that we've never seen before in Marvel. They got really deep into the drama. That's something that Batman vs. Superman didn't have, because leading up into that movie, you only had Man of Steel. That was Ben Affleck's first time as Batman. So you didn't know too much about his character, and they spent most of the movie setting him up, but you never got to see Superman's side of the story too much. And that's why when it came to the conflict, it wasn't as dramatic, and it wasn't like when at the end when they killed off Superman, there wasn't that sadness, because Ben Affleck had just his Batman just met Superman and had no feelings for him whatsoever. So that created no drama. But in Civil War, these are all characters we've been watching for 8 years now, especially Iron Man. We've seen him in so many movies now, and Captain America. And so to see them two disagreeing and then eventually fighting, it was very dramatic and very kind of sad in a way as a viewer, but it was awesome to see, just because this was something that's been boiling over. They tried to set it up a little bit in Age of Ultron with that one scene where they're out chopping wood and they get into a little bit of a disagreement, but overall this movie does a great job of setting that up. And another thing, Black Panther was awesome. He was in it more than I expected, and he had a bigger role in it than I expected. I knew he was going to be in a lot, and I knew that his father was going to have some sort of role in it, but overall that was just awesome. And his fight scenes were awesome. He fights in a different style than any of them do. He fights in a cat-like style, which they kind of joke about in the movie. And I think it was Falcon jokes about him wearing a cat suit. And yeah, so Black Panther was awesome. And all the characters, they all had that great moment in this movie. And it was a movie I enjoyed watching. There was never a dull moment in this movie that I felt looking at my watch, when is this going to be over? Which I kind of was for Batman vs. Superman. But this was just a great movie, and I can't wait, because I love the way Joe and Anthony Russo direct these movies. There's a lot of comedy, but there's a lot of drama involved, and I can't wait for them to be directing Avengers Infinity War, and to be dealing with even more heroes and even more conflicts, and a greater villain with Thanos. And I just can't wait for that moment. And overall, I would give this movie a 9.3 out of 10, because I believe it's the strongest Marvel movie that I've seen. And they've put out a lot of great movies. Even a bad Marvel movie is still a good movie. I mean, they still make great movies, but this was, I think, at the top of their lineup in terms of quality. And I can't wait for Avengers Infinity War. So that does it for this review. So definitely go watch it if you haven't seen it. I know I just gave you a lot of spoilers, but and if you have seen it, I hope you agree. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll be doing a lot more of these. So this is just the first one of many. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, and see you later.